Welcome to Nugget 212 with Steve Groman, and today we will be taking you to the Oregon interior.
Oh, this will be fun.
It's gorgeous.
It's gorgeous. It is beautiful stuff.
There aren't enough adjectives, actually, so I'm not even going to try.
Don't come up with a new one. It's awesome.
Once part of Oregon's Gold Country, John Day Fossil Beds National Monument has been recognized as an important paleontological.
Yep.
That's a tough word for me to spit out. Since the 1860s. The park has 3 distinct units, which are separated by many, many miles. Sheeprock, which we've been to twice. Painted Hills, which we will take you to today. This was our second visit to that one. And Clarno, and we will take you there in the next Nugget. And that was our first visit to the fossil unit. Today, we're taking you to the Painted Hills. It is located along the Journey Through Time, Oregon Scenic Byway. That's an understatement, isn't it?
That is an understatement.
But of course, they have all the evolutionary signs. And they explain on this sign what the different colors are, which is interesting to read.
And they may or may not be exactly right. They're not right in the timing. We all, of course, know it happened at the time of the flood. All of this stuff happens. You have volcanic material, you have magma, you have manganese, you have salts, you have all kinds of stuff coming up from when the fountains of the Great Deep broke up, mixing with water and such. And
what is interesting is that on this sign, they talk about an incredible amount of rainfall. Yet this is a desert today. And the iron red paleo soils indicate a warm and moist environment where the soil was usually damp. Ponds and lakes would have dotted the area. Rainfall would have been at least 31 inches per year, and maybe have been as high as 53 inches per year. The yellow and tan soils indicate a drier environment, when the red layers, where standing water would not have been present in much of the area. Rainfall would have been between 23 inches and 47 inches per year. Today's rainfall averages 12 inches. Interesting, wouldn't you say?
all belief, as you can see, such specificness in something that happened, according to them, a long, long time ago.
Painted by the past. But the thing is, they know it took
water.
An incredible amount of water.
Yes.
Not just an average
We're
amount.
the ones with a mechanism way beforehand to explain that.
So we took off on the Painted Hills Overlook Trail. It's just a half-mile trail, and this is the one that most tourists take. Well, what's crazy is when we were there years ago, we were the only ones out there, and it was sort of desolate. And
yes.
As I wrote in my book, it's like as you're driving the 6 miles to get there, you're kind of wondering why you're going. But then when you make the turn and you see these views, it's like, oh, I definitely know why I made it. And now it's become extremely popular. And there were a lot of people out there that day.
And they have improved the trails.
Yes, they have. It's very, very nice. But we went on to the Painted Cove Trail, and it was gorgeous. It's just a 1/4-mile loop. And as the sign said, enjoy the exhibit signs along the way.
And they did have a lot of them, and they do explain a lot of interesting phenomena. Paleo Art Colors. Yellow and red clay layers mark different paleo environments. Red soil indicates warm, wet period where swamps were common. Yellow clays point to a cooler, drier time dominated by hardwood forests.
What do you think of that?
Okay.
Volcanic ash, along with organic debris from nearby hardwood forests, washed into swampy basins, eventually forming waterlogged soils in ancient wetlands. How did these slimy black swamp soils turn red? It is just really amazing how they describe what we can imagine the pre-flood environment was.
Exactly.
And the occurrences during the flood.
And why it would all be mixed together like this.
They just repeat their evolutionary scenario over and over again, and we're going to repeat
with no mechanism.
Noah's flood over and over and over again.
That's exactly right. Like old metal, the hills are slowly oxidizing or rusting. About 33 million years ago, iron-rich volcanic ash fell on this landscape. Weathering processes slowly changed new ash layers into fertile soils under forests and swamps. Over time, oxidizing irons stained the clay soils, forming the rusting red hills you see today.
Okay, here we've got volcanic ash. We know that the fountains of the Great Deep broke up and spewed, I would say, quite a bit of volcanic material.
Yes.
Creating this.
Forests and swamps.
Right, and we would have had that in the pre-flood world. There would have been fertile soils under forest and swamps because God watered the ground from a mist, and there would have been water on the ground, obviously, in areas. It's just really exciting to read this and to know that all we need to do is like block out that little date section, and it's explaining things beautifully. beautifully.
Right, we don't have to make up some time frame or anything because we were already told ahead of time when and what that time frame was. The ultimate sculptor. Water carves away soft sediments made of tiny clay particles in the dry desert landscape. Sinkholes can mark the start of underground tunnels and waterways cut by flowing water, carrying away fine clay particles.
And that process right there is how fossils were formed.
Right.
We've got the volcanic material. We've got underground waterways.
Waterways and tunnels and such.
It just perfectly explains how you explain how fossils are formed. The art of nature, erosion by wind and water, transforms the landscape, infinitely changing the picture. It is God's flood,
Absolutely.
Noah's flood.
In the disaster that it was, there's still beauty that comes out of it.
And then we went over to White Hill and took the hike. Then the next stop that we went to was the Leaf Fossil Trail, and that's what we want to focus on today because of the topic.
A forest long gone, much different than the near-desert landscape you see today. A hardwood forest dominated the scene here about 33 million years ago. A vast assemblage of plant fossils discovered here, called the Bridge Creek flora, reveal evidence of one of Earth's cooling trends. From a previously rainy, hot, jungle-like environment about 45 million years ago, the region became drier and more seasonal. Well, I would say that describes the pre-flood world and then when it all went away.
Yeah, that was a jungle environment. That would be a great way to describe the pre-flood world. And then seasons began, and Genesis 8:22 is the first mention of seasons after the flood.
It's amazing because like the sign ends with many trees in this ancient forest related to modern alders, elms, beech, birch, maples, oaks.
Of course.
Of course they would have been. Some of the signs and some of the information and placards, they are true to a certain extent. They just have the time wrong and they have the scenario of how it happened. It's all made up. Nobody was there to see this kind of thing and they have no previous record of it.
Just like you talk about Charles Darwin, how he admits that he looked through everything through the eyes of Charles Lyell. These people are looking through the eyes of their instructors, their professors, and ultimately Charles Darwin and Malthus and all the people that came up with evolution as an alternative to God's Word.
Most people that do take these tours and do go to these beautiful places, they're looking at it through the eyes of the people who wrote the signs.
True.
They're assuming that they know what they're talking about, and they're assuming that it's true.
We're extremely outnumbered, and that's why we are working hard on these nuggets. And please share these nuggets with family and friends and help us get the word out. This sign also had, to the edge of extinction, once thought extinct, the fossil leaves of genus Metasequoia, the dawn redwood, and we've talked about the dawn redwood in several nuggets, are commonly found all over the northern hemisphere in deposits dating from the ice ages back over 130 million years. Well, we still have redwoods, and you should go see them in California when you get a chance.
And they still look like the fossils.
They still do. A big reason is that the dawn redwood is deciduous, similar to the modern larch or tamarack. They would drop their leaves each fall season, transport and fossilize at the bottom of lake beds, along with the many other deciduous hardwood leaves. In the early 1900s, dawn redwoods were discovered still living in one small valley in China. Well, isn't that interesting? The Metasequoia is now Oregon state fossil. They have that you're not supposed to take them, and we saw the hill. It's just loaded with them. They don't want you to collect, and we don't want you to collect either, because this is...
No, we don't want to tear it up. It's an awesome historical record.
As they say, treasure amidst the beauty. And then they have pictures of the fossil leaves that have been found there, the different ones, alders, metasequoia, fossil elm leaves. Of course, they're just the pre-flood leaves. Charcoal fossil wood, fossil maple seed, fossil pine seeds. Of the many scientists who have studied this site, one of the most active was Ralph Cheney. He was a University of California paleobotanist who in 1923 wrote about Leaf Hill. I quarried 98 cubic feet of leaf-bearing shale from 3 pits in the low hill to the right of the road. I split the slabs of ashy shale into thin layers, which would yield a total of 20,611 specimens.
And we've done that where you have a very thin shale of some sort, very thin material, rock, and you drive something in between the two of the slivers, and awesome things are in that. Really beautiful fossils will just show up because they're there.
Even though it's extremely fragile, these people actually think this stuff would have lasted millions and millions of years. It's hard for me to believe it's lasted.
But don't touch it, it'll fall apart.
It's hard for me to believe it lasted 4,400.
Right.
In our next nugget, we will take you on the drive, the long drive to pass through Fossil, Oregon, and on to the Clarno Unit.
How would you like to live in a town named Fossil?
I would love it.
As long as it's off 395, you'd really love it.
I would really love it, but actually, I'm not sure. That town didn't impress me too much. We will get back with you in the John Day Fossil Bed Clarno Unit.
Sounds good.
Thank you.